Okay, hi everyone. We're just gonna wait a couple of seconds for everyone to join, and then we will get started. There is a chat box if you want to tell us where you're coming from, what you're looking forward to hearing in this session. Okay, and I will do a little introduction while we wait for everyone to join. So welcome to our latest community event. So this one is called How to Negotiate Your Salary. And for anyone unfamiliar with Work 180, I'll just give you a little bit of background first. So our mission is to improve workplace standards for all women. So we assess employers on a range of factors, including paid parental leave, pay equity, flexible working arrangements, and much more. And then we endorse those that are truly committed to supporting women's careers. So if you have never been on our website, we will send it all in a follow-up email so you can check it out. But the employers that are featured there, along with their detail, they list all their detailed information about their policies and benefits so that you can make an informed decision before you even apply, which is cool. And we also have a very active Facebook group. So if you have any questions just about, general workplace or being a woman in the workplace or how to advance your career, we are going to invite you there after the session as well. It's a safe space, it's a private group, so you can ask questions and network with like-minded women. And today we're going to hear from one of our really fantastic career coaches, Robin. So please feel free to use the chat box to ask Robin questions. I'll probably jump in there and let her know if we have a question, but we'll probably wait till the end to do the questions, but just make sure that you feel free to comment there as much as you want. And I will pass it over to Robin and put myself on mute. But yeah, hope everyone enjoys today's session.
Thank you, Jenna, and welcome everyone. So glad you are taking time out of your possibly school holidays to join us today. Really appreciate you making the effort to be here because I know you are all busy. And that is why I'm going to try to keep our session to 30 minutes today. And then at the end, Jenna and I will stay to answer questions. So I'm going to fly through the content because I know you're all interested in some of the negotiation techniques that we don't get this training for when we're young or in school. So I have put it together for you today, and I'm going to share my screen with you. And I will also be sharing the slides with you today. So let me get started here. So first of all, my name is Robin DeLucia. I am a career coach. I have had my own business for 6 years, been a career coach for like 8 years, and I've had director jobs in both the US and Australia, so you can hear my American accent. I've lived in Australia for 15 years. I've been an HR director, technologies director, procurement director. So hopefully some of these real life tips, which have worked for me and a lot of my clients, will also help you as well. So today we're going to talk about what to prepare for the salary discussion. And I've actually differentiated between, how much preparation is involved if you have an existing employer that you want to negotiate with versus if you're job hunting and you want to negotiate a new salary. So there are different steps and techniques. It's more complex with negotiating with your current boss. So I've kind of spent a little bit more effort in sharing that information with you, but I will do both. And then I also want to tell you the best ways that you can write down your value and be able to articulate that. I also am going to teach you a few negotiation techniques. I used to be a vendor management director in the US where I had to manage IBM and AT&T and big vendors. So there's some techniques that I learned from that. And then closing the deal and what you can do, regardless of the outcome, what you can do to still put yourself in a positive position, but also set the stage for getting the outcome you want maybe down the road. So I just wanted to give you some facts here. So 80% of employers say it's reasonable to expect pay raises to keep up with inflation. So this was a survey that was done in Australia. I think they surveyed like over almost 5,000 people, and with about 300 businesses, and these are across Australia and New Zealand. 88% of employers are experiencing skill shortages and have retention challenges. 95% plan to increase salary, so that number continually grows. And the same thing for us working professionals. We continue to have higher expectations of a pay raise because, as we know, the cost of living. And then salary is a top factor for motivating for new job searches. So it's become more relevant in our lives. And so that's why I'm excited that so many people have signed up for this webinar today, because it's a topic I am passionate about, especially in teaching women. You would have heard in the Australian media recently, there was a lot of controversy because we're still way behind, too far behind in the gender pay equity. And that is why I partner with Work 180, because that's one of their tenets, to advocate for us to have equal pay for the same jobs. Okay, so the first thing, how and what do you research? So the first thing that you're going to look up is benchmark salary data. So benchmarking is an HR term. Many of you would have heard of it, but a lot of companies, particularly the bigger companies, they subscribe to services that give them very detailed data on what are the salary ranges that companies with various job titles pay their staff. And if you have good data, it'll actually tell you and differentiate between what people make in Sydney versus Melbourne versus Brisbane versus Perth. And so I've got a screenshot that I'm going to share with you, and I'll just break it down on how you read this data. So that's the most important thing, whether you're a new job hunter or you're in the current job, it's really good to arm yourself with that information. The next thing that you need to do is make a list of your recent achievements, and you need to be good at, making those achievements kind of a one-liner bullet point list, as if you're writing your resume or part of, doing your performance review. In American Express, where I used to work, we would have to do self-appraisal. So we did all the work for our leaders, but at least they could use that as a tool to go advocate for us. And so that also leads to having clear metrics wherever you can. I helped a client recently that was a marketing executive, and she was so great about capturing in all of her old jobs. She grew revenue by 3%, or she was able to improve engagement on a particular product by 30%. And so estimates are okay, but those metrics are really helpful. And then how did your achievements add value to the company? If you can articulate, I've brought in new customers, or I've helped us retain customers in a volatile environment, how those achievements add value to the company is really good for you to understand and to articulate to your boss, and then, or future boss. And then what's the time and role? That is appropriate to ask for a pay raise. So sometimes if you're, let's say you've only worked at the company for 6 months, 9 months, do they have an annual process where they review salaries? Because you want to be conscious of that and how they try to make it fair for all employees. But if they don't have that regular time frame, or they haven't had it for the last couple of years, then maybe it is appropriate to ask for a pay raise. And the other thing is, I see this often where people are elevated in their jobs and they aren't given a pay increase right away. So you might become the acting manager of the team because the manager left. It is something that is appropriate for you to have that discussion with them about a pay raise, maybe not for the future title if you haven't been given it officially, but sometimes they'll grant you kind of an interim pay bonus for the level of responsibility and the duties that you're performing. So it's like a higher duties allowance. So there are other circumstances where it is appropriate to ask for this discussion of a pay rise outside of the annual cycle. But always try to link those achievements to the company goals. Okay, so this is a snapshot of the salary benchmarking data that I every year I download this information from Hayes. And Hayes is a global recruiting company, staff provision company in many countries. And I love it because they gather all this data every year and they make it free. So you all can ask for this PDF report as well, but I've made it easier for you. You don't have to give Hayes your email address. I've attached it on my website and you can go in and download it. It's like a couple hundred pages. It's got 37 different industries. I get asked about marketing jobs quite a bit, so I just kind of screenshotted this one. But what this shows you is all the job titles. By the way, marketing has, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages of job titles. So this is not the only marketing family job titles, but you can see that they've broken it down into Sydney salary range, Melbourne, Brisbane, even to Hobart and New Zealand. And this number, this first number is the median range, right? So this is the middle point of the average salary that people are paid. So it's 75,000 per year. This is base pay. This does not include superannuation. In Australia, and I'm only mentioning Australia because I know sometimes we have people that join us on these webinars from the UK or Dubai or other parts, and a lot of these tips are still relevant. But in Australia, the law is that every employee, every employer should contribute 11% superannuation, which is kind of our 401k or our retirement fund. And so sometimes employers are sneaky and they'll advertise a job that includes both the base pay and the superannuation. And you want to clarify that with them when you're having a verbal discussion. So all of these salary figures do not include superannuation. And this shows the low and the top end, excluding outliers. That's kind of the average. And so you can see where you might fall in that range, especially if you've been doing the role quite a bit. Look, it's not a hard and fast rule that I use, but I usually tell people that if you've done the role for 0 to 5 years, then you want to stay in the bottom to the middle range. But if you've done the role for 5 years or more, or maybe it's a more competitive job title and you have a lot of experience in the last 2 years, then you want to put yourself at the middle to the top end range. It's up to you, but at least you have have those numbers that you can use from this salary benchmarking data. Okay, now I know a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome, and these are some extra tips that I want to provide you on, just in preparation before you have that discussion, whether it's a salary negotiation phone call when you get the job offer, or whether it's meeting with the boss. Make a list of all the times that someone said you could not do it and did it anyway. I was told I wouldn't make a good mom. I was told I'd never be able to move to a different country. So there's just things that we remember and think, oh, wow, I did kind of do some really cool things. The other part is listing your proudest achievements. So maybe you worked hard to have a baby or to buy a house or to get a job in a different industry. So list those proudest achievements because very confidence building. You can also watch the Brene Brown video, which she's a Texan funny lady. She talks about the power of vulnerability and how through risk, there's no reward. And, so many people miss out on new relationships or new job opportunities or careers. And so it's a very inspirational 20-minute TED Talk. You should also tap into your own network. If you have friends that or mentors that are your advocates and you need that confidence boost, tell them you're having self-doubts about this discussion or this new job that you want to lobby for, and get their insights. But the last thing is there's also a TED Talk from a lady named Amy Cuddy, Cuddy, and she's a psychologist, and she talks about the power pose, which is like when they run the Olympics and they run through the finish line. The power pose has been proven to chemically help your brain think on your feet more, the blood circulation, and reduce nervousness. So you can go into the bathroom before your discussion and do the power pose for 10, 20, 30 seconds, do some deep breathing. And that is something that can help you before this discussion if you're really anxiety prone. um, Now, getting into the negotiation strategy, this, for the most part, is for your existing job, your boss. So this is preparing for this discussion. So before you have the discussion, you want to do your research, like on the benchmarking, your achievements, double check your metrics so that you don't want to be caught out in the discussion that something's wrong. That's going to lose your credibility right away. Research the company goals as well so that you have those on hand, and then list your strongest, prioritize your achievements, listing the strongest ones first. The other thing is, define what would be a great outcome of this discussion, that I achieve, $150,000 salary a year, or, anything above 120, or whatever your number is. And then also think of some alternatives. Well, what if I don't get that? What would be, a nice thing to have? Maybe ask for a 9-day fortnight week where you get every second Friday off. Or maybe you want the company to help you set up a work at home station where they help you fund the internet service. Just other things that might be something that your boss can offer you because they can't offer the salary that you would like. And we understand some companies are struggling. And the next thing is to set the scene and the tone. So you're going to send an email or a verbal message to your boss saying, I would like to have a salary discussion with you. Don't go into any detail. You don't have to have your whys unless they ask you. Well, I haven't had an increase for the last 24 months, or, I've done some research and I'd like to talk about that with you. Keep it very minimal. This is negotiation 101. Don't give away all your cards right away, but just say, look, I want to have a face-to-face discussion with you about my salary. So you're not surprising them. You're giving them a heads up. You're giving them the ability to prepare for that discussion. And then you're, again, I really want to stay at the company. I've loved working here. So it's kind of reassuring them that you're not going anywhere, but you want to have the discussion. And then, yeah, set a higher goal than you would like. So we as women are sometimes much more rational in terms of, well, you pay me what you think I deserve. We need to abandon that. That's why we're in this gender equity mismatch. And so we need to give them a number of what we want. Think like a man, and make it higher, make it slightly higher, whatever your comfort level is, 5,000 more a year, 15, 20,000 more a year, but set your goal higher, assuming that you're going to meet in the middle. And that goes for both current job seekers and new job seekers. And I know we have some questions, but I'm just going to get through the content and then we'll open it up for anyone that's kind of time poor within the 30 minutes. And I'm happy to stay for another 30 minutes and answer all the questions because I know you guys are going to have great ones. Okay, now during the discussion, you're going to outline your achievements. And what I would say is bring your kind of one-page business case to this discussion. So you'll have those very succinct achievements, one-line bullet points. And this is what I teach people in their resumes as well. So you can borrow some of these achievements from your resume if you need, or your performance reviews. Metrics are better. You can also share the benchmarking data research that you've done with your boss, but please don't share that information or your achievements or any of this business case data until the actual discussion, because if you disclose that information to them too early, it gives them time to strategize and make points against you, right? So I'm not saying you want to catch them off guard, but you want to have a compelling business case that they have to, on the fly respond to, like, well, there's not really much they can say that you didn't add value if you've got all of this facts and data right in front of them. Be sure to take notes throughout the discussion about commitments or clarification points, or maybe your boss has made a great point to go find out the answer to another question. Be assertive and professional. We don't get emotional during this discussion. So poker face. Don't give away, that you are highly frustrated because you haven't been given a salary. You found out your colleague makes far more than you, which does happen. But yeah, just stick to the facts, stick to your points and your supporting argument. If you get a result, stop talking, right? Thank you. Really appreciate it. They get it. They're agreeing with you. They might ask you for some more information. Absolutely. You don't have to keep giving your whys, right? And then set up another meeting. If you couldn't conclude, in 6 months even, or 3 months, put it on their calendar. Don't worry if there's no decision, but ask them, what more information, when can we discuss this again? Is it okay with you if I set, just another touch point meeting on your calendar for us to talk about again in a few months? So summarize those actions and absolutely put it into an email that you send to them, and copy yourself on that email. Okay, now in the heads up email, this is the email that you may send to the boss before. So a lot of us have bosses that aren't in proximity to us. We don't see them every day. And it is better if you can send the email, because then you avoid any questions. Try not to do a text unless you have that relationship with your boss. But in the email it's a better record of the conversation. Just say, I'd like to meet to discuss a salary review, give them courtesy, about how you meet and where. I encourage you to get them out of their office because there's always distractions, the phone's ringing. Try to schedule a separate conference room, a huddle room, or even a cafe where they can focus on you. If you have that opportunity, there's always this power play. So especially like as a negotiation veteran, when you go into a conference room and you're both sitting face to face, it's threatening. So it's even better at a table that one can sit at the 90-degree angle and the other can sit at the 90. So you have this fight or flight thing in your brain that you just feel more comfortable if you are sitting in a neutral conference room with them. If you're on the webcam, then obviously you can't get out of that, but that's great because it forces both of you to focus on each other in that discussion. So you can ask for the webcam discussion about the salary, and just be prepared to share your screens, your benchmarking salary data, your business case that you would have prepared for that discussion. And then after you've had that salary negotiation discussion, definitely send out an email, thank them for their time, summarize the discussion, anything that needed clarifying, set up follow-up times, clearly document, what was agreed. And if you don't get a positive outcome, it still puts you in good standing because you've acted professionally. You didn't, have a tantrum or threaten to leave, or like, I really appreciate you taking the time. I would love to discuss this again in the future. So at least it puts them on point. And from being an HR director in the past, those people that have asked for salary, when we do get the go ahead to give salary increases, you're going to be the first on the list because you asked for it and because you put a compelling case forward. So don't be too disappointed if you don't get the result you want at that moment. It will come in handy that you spoke up and asked, possibly down the track. Now, for people that are new hire job seekers, this is something that you can do to help yourself. So if a recruiter calls you before you've interviewed and they ask you, what are your salary expectations? This happens all the time. Give them a range. Don't give them one figure because that locks you in and it takes away your ability to negotiate once you do get an offer. So give them a range and just say, I've done the research, my salary that I would like. Try to avoid them asking, well, what did you make before? It's none of their business. You could have been, and I have this with my clients, they could have been $40,000 a year underpaid. That's not fair to ask that question. I really think it's a red flag, me personally, that employers ask that. Most of them don't nowadays, but I do see it sometimes even on the websites where you have to apply for the job that they ask you to disclose your previous salary. If they're sharing the base salary, you do need to clarify that. So I just had a client recently who got a job at one of the major TV stations, and they said, "Oh, we're going to bring you in at 55,000," and it was an entry-level job, so he was fine with that. But when he started first day, he really was making 48,000 because they had made him think in the job ad that it didn't include superannuation, the 11%, but it did. So he actually now, takes home 48,000. So that's a disappointment. I've seen that happen with a few people. You can ask for a higher base salary than you want, so negotiate like a man. This is kind of the phrasing that I teach my clients to use when they ask for that salary. It's usually a phone call when they're calling to offer you the job, because they don't want to write up the letter of offer until you both have agreed on that figure. And if you can't ever agree on that figure, then they haven't wasted their time. So you're going to give them at that point a number, not a range. You've now had great interviews at the employer. They want you. You're in a position of power. But once you give them that number, and again, it may be higher than you'd be happy with, be comfortable with 6 seconds of silence. Count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, count to 6, and let them have the ownership of responding to you. They may say, "Oh, I'm not authorized, to approve that. Let me get back to you." They may say, "Oh, that's too high. I'll have to check." That's okay too. That's their psychological negotiating tactic. They may say, "I'm afraid we can't do that." And sometimes it's okay for you to say, "Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty. I really appreciate the time." You can still send thank you notes. I definitely have had clients where the employer came back and said, "Actually, we'd still love to hire you," and they come up to meet your number, or they come up a little bit more. And you could say that, "Look, if you reconsider, I would really love to work at your company." So at least they go back and maybe talk to their management. They don't want to go through the whole interview and recruitment stage process. So don't think that it's a done deal. I had one young gentleman, he was so mad. He was going for a marketing entry-level job. They offered him, like 15, 20,000 less. He was ready to walk away. He was so frustrated. And I said, "Hold on, give them the benchmarking salary data, tell them this is your number." And they did. They came up $14,000 a year in salary. He could not believe it. And this was like a 2-year uni graduate. So he had worked in marketing for 2 years. So he was so excited. And it's okay if they say thanks. If it's okay for you to say thanks for checking on that. If you're not happy with the offer, it is okay to say, "Can I have 24 hours, 48 hours to get back to you?" That is professional in today's world. And it's okay also to say, "Look, I'm talking with other employers." Be truthful, but please don't tell them who you're talking to, what the job title is, what the salary is. Don't give them any of that information, because that just gives them areas that they can negotiate with you, and they don't need to know that information. And if you don't get the job, they don't deserve you. Okay, so just wrapping up, we've got 1 minute. The managers, both existing and new, they're thinking, "Oh gosh, am I going to be able to get this approved by my boss? What's the mood of the company, of my leader? How much escalation?" Sometimes companies will try to promise you a bonus, never guaranteed. When you ask them to put it in writing, I'm sure they will not. So that's all fine and great, but bonuses are not the best, especially if there are things out of your control. And to summarize today's discussion, stick to the facts, have your script, be able to follow up in writing to paraphrase your discussion. You can send them that business case. Give them a chance to respond and come back to you. That's okay. And be prepared to hand that 1 or 2 business case document, 1 or 2 page business case document that's kind of summarized your points of why you deserve the raise. Don't get emotional. Don't give them a guilt trip. Don't use statements that women often use that, "Well, I believe I've made a big contribution," or "I feel, I work more hours," or remove those statements. They kind of diminish your power. Don't be afraid to remind them you'd still like an increase. I had a boss I didn't get the pay entry level when I started at the company, but a year later, I had all my list of achievements and I said, are we going to be able to get to my salary that you wanted to do last year? And he was like, let me check on that. And he did come back and he got it pre-approved before the annual salary increase. And I got the 10 grand a year pay bump. So that was really cool by me reminding him. And that's it. I hope that's given you some great tips. And we're at 30 minutes. So let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, Robin. Okay. So what about when they say you have to wait until the annual salary review time from Larissa?
I think that is fair if you haven't done anything like acting, in a manager role or taken on another person's job. I think that's fair for you to wait because if you think about your peers and they were to be aware that you got the increase out of the annual cycle, that creates, employee dissatisfaction. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. Yeah, so it just depends on if it's out of the cycle, but if you haven't had an increase or yeah, there's other extenuating circumstance, I would still say, well, I'd still like to discuss it. What
Yeah.
else? What other questions do you have?
Mhm. Great. Okay. Okay, from Sim, just to clarify, the webcam meeting is preferable to the face-to-face meeting to avoid fight or flight, or the other way around?
Um, the webcam meeting is okay because if if you've got your webcam set up properly, and I teach people this, like you need to make sure your eyes are looking directly at the camera. You're not looking down at your screen because it kind of looks more condescending. I think it's better to have that webcam because it commands more attention. Whereas if you're in a conference room, you are sometimes distracted by other things that are happening outside the windows or noises outside of the room. So I think it's good to have the webcam because you're definitely more focused on each other. Does that answer
Mhm.
the question? Do you think, Jenna?
Um, I think so. Let us know, Sim. I have another comment from Sim. Which I think we all agree on, but why do most advertised jobs these days not include a salary or at least a range? I don't want to apply unless I have an idea of salary.
Mm.
I think we all feel that.
Well, that's look, you're right that not all of them share the salary, the advertised salary, and that's because they want to be sneaky, and that's a red flag. So I would tend to go to the Work 180 website where those employers that have been through the training and have been approved and endorsed employers are more likely to share the salary up front. There are sneaky ways that you can look up the salary and seek. You can do the job search by the salary range, and you can, set the minimum and the maximum to see where that job advertisement falls. In LinkedIn, you can't do that. And I've given LinkedIn that feedback when you're searching for jobs. So sometimes you got to be brave and ask what's the range and see if they disclose that to you, especially if you're talking with a recruiter and you can call them up and say, look, I saw this job ad. It doesn't have the pay range. Are you able to give that to me? But generally, the recruiters are going to ask you that same question, like, well, what's your salary range to make sure you're on the same page before they consider you and put you forward to a client of theirs.
Mhm. Yeah, good advice. Um, Again from Larissa, if they do ask what salary you are currently on, is it better to inflate the number to better negotiate closer to what you do want? Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. Okay. So you don't lie because in the old days, I don't hear them doing this very often now because people are so time poor, but they used to be able to call up your old employer and verify your job title and your last salary. I think this is problematic and employers have steered away from it. But assuming that they could check your employment status, the employers are very reluctant because of Australia's privacy laws to share a lot of detail anyway. They will only share like the job title and yes, that you started at the company at this date and you left at this date. That's it. Um, so if they ask you the question, what are your salary requirements? I would go on the benchmarking data. I wouldn't go on what you made unless they explicitly ask you that question, which I've seen in even some of the big banks. I can't remember which big bank it was here that asked you that exact question. Then you have to tell them the truth. But if they're asking you, what's the last salary verbally, I would say, well, my research indicates, I would evade that question by saying, well, the research that I've done on benchmarking salary data, and then they're going to steer clear of pressing you
Yeah.
for the answer to that question. They're going to know, oh gosh, she knows what
Yeah.
she knows what they're talking about. I'm not going to push that one.
Yeah. I like that. From Paula, is it frowned upon to ask or talk about salary in the first interview or even the initial screening call?
Yes. It's honestly, it's not a good look to employers if you ask what is the salary in that first discussion. Yes, I always tell people it's a opportunity for you to decide, do you like the company? Are you getting good vibes? Are there any red flags? But I would wait and hold your power for when they make an offer to you, or maybe they've put you through 2 or 3 interviews. At that point, it is okay for you to ask the HR person, what is the salary range, just so that I'm respectful of your time and we don't waste each other's time if I progress in this process. They will
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that.
Mhm. Great. Elizabeth, how do we handle a salary negotiation with current employee if we have another offer from an outside company but would actually prefer to stay with the current employee?
I've had a couple of clients have this in the last few months. Okay, so I would be honest with saying I do have another job offer. I would not tell them the title, the employer name, the salary offer. I would be honest in saying I really prefer your employer, but um, my research indicates that this role should be paying at this amount based on my experience and my achievements. And then be comfortable with the silence, the 6 seconds. That
Mm-hmm.
is the statement that you should say to them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Great. Larissa, what if the company has just got through an acquisition and changed from financial year to calendar year, meaning salary reviews could potentially change to this, which would mean 18 months before a salary review?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a bit unfair. I mean, I would say if your job is changing, this is a hard one. If your job is changing, let's say by 25%, then I would still ask to have that discussion, knowing you're going to probably get knocked back. But if you've already given some business reasons why you're making under, the salary that you should be, based on your benchmarking salary data that you show your new boss or current boss, based on, what you've been delivering at the company and how you've been contributing to the bottom line, it's still a great discussion to have because it puts them on notice that if there's any opportunity to give me a bonus or something else as a carrot to keep me engaged at this company, they know that's your expectation.
Mhm. Right. If you are on, for example, a customer service title and would like to have a senior customer service title after working 5 years in the same company, in the same role, same duties, how would you approach that?
I would be doing my research on the internet about the senior customer service roles. What are the position descriptions that you find, that, what are the duties that those roles have? And then again, prepare that business case about, I'd like to pitch. Sometimes it's not even the money, but having that new job title helps you go somewhere else and get more money. The best way to get more money is to leave your employer and go to a new one. They've done research that proves this. Unfortunately, if you stay at the company for 10 years and keep expecting better pay, it's going to be much slower. So yes, do your research to support that argument. And if there are other senior customer service people at the company that are doing the role, you could even do, like, without throwing anyone under the bus, you could do a comparison. Well, I'm actually taking more supervised escalation calls than this person who's just doing dispute resolution, or yeah, something like that, that compares the responsibility and the customer interaction or customer feedback that you're getting.
From Sim, what if your supposedly annual review or pay increments haven't even happened for a number of years, so you've had no opportunity to show your achievements, and you've missed out on any reward or recognition for more experience, more complex projects, more career maturity, etc. I've been asking about this for 2 years and have been ignored. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some companies don't even have an HR team because they outsource it to a third party just when they need it. So if you don't have an HR person that you can go to have that discussion, that's more difficult for you to get compensation. But I would be starting to look outside the company for a new role because if they haven't listened to you and haven't taken any action in 2 years, and that means they're treating others the same way, then that's not the best culture to be working in. Especially
Mhm.
if you've followed my advice and put some, very data-driven facts in front of them and said, I really need an increase. I haven't had one for 24 months. I realize you don't have a structured performance review process, but this is important to me and it's part of, my career development.
Yeah. Okay. How should I handle a situation when during a screening call they disclose the salary range to me and it is 10K lower than my expectation? Should I let them know my expectation or is there a better approach?
Well, they should be asking you your expectation. If it's lower, I would say something, especially if it's a recruiter, because um, I will be honest, like I don't have a soft spot for some of the recruiters because there's so many people they never get back to, right? They never tell you if you interviewed why you didn't get the job. They don't give you feedback. You don't get responses on your applications. But what you also don't want to do is cause the recruiter to be embarrassed by putting you forward. You knew the salary, but you knew it was lower than you wanted. And then the client loves you, and then it comes down to negotiating a higher salary, you've put the recruiter now in an awkward position. So I would be telling them, look, I really am interested in this job, but that number is too low. This is my bottom line number. I'm still looking at other opportunities as well, but I would be willing to talk to this employer if it's a good fit and it's a good culture, if they were able to achieve my number.
Mhm.
I would be honest with them on that discussion.
What metrics achievements would you suggest providing if I don't have any financial ones applicable to my role?
They don't have to be financial. And I work with a lot of people. So, uh, you know, I'm trying to think. So if you were working in, I don't know, let's say warehousing, and you were able to create a process that reduced the number of safety incidents, or you were able to create procedures where none existed before that now are used for the new hires that come into the company. Or maybe you have been the one that's been appointed as the trainer for the new hires. Like all of those are achievements that don't necessarily have to have metrics. And so there's a whole range of them. And metrics are better, especially if you can measure, your contribution. But I do recognize that's not possible for every type of role or every person. So yes, you can still articulate those achievements and be proud of them. I was asked to step up for the boss when they were on holiday. Yeah, there's so many. I got promoted, as you know, or I've got, 10 customer compliments in the last 6 months.
Mhm.
Like all of those things are great metrics as well.
Right. When is it reasonable to bring up requests for flexible arrangements?
Hmm. Well, if you go on my website, there's some resources about, and it's under employer negotiation about asking for flexible work. So that's kind of a business case as well. So you have to do your research on what's the company policy. Are there other employees that are working from home or working remotely? Um, and so you have to gather that data. And the same thing, you got to give your boss a heads up. I want to have a discussion with you. Bring your business case to them to say, here's why it's important to me. And the carrot that you have that's helps you have more leverage is that Australia many years ago introduced legislation that helped people that were carers for small children under the age of 5, or they needed to care for an aging parent. There's legislation that actually provides these guides as well. So that's what I have on my website is the Australia guide to asking for flexible working. So they have to consider it by law. They can still say no, but they have to consider it if you put it in writing. And, I would consult with HR as well if you don't know what the policies are. So I don't know that there's a particular time, but if you do have small children and you want to have that work flexibility, you already have that leverage or that knowledge behind you that you can have that discussion now. If you just got a new job and you want to ask for flexible working just for your own convenience, I usually wait like 6 months for them to see the tremendous value that you add to the company before you would ask that question. That's just my kind of guideline.
Right. What constitutes a reasonable salary range? Can it be too big?
Gosh, it would be too big if you're getting into the more senior leadership roles. Because, for example, if I'm the CEO at a not-for-profit versus the CEO at, Commonwealth Bank, there's a huge disparity in that salary range. So I would still be keeping it if it's kind of lower end to middle management. I would still be keeping that if you can, like $20,000 range, $30,000 max. But if you're in the senior leader or senior sales, high paying stakes, then I would make the range bigger.
How did you discuss packages? So, extra benefits, stock options, discounts, etc.
Yes, so you can also ask for stock options if you're aware that they are awarded at the company, and employers should be doing that behind the scenes proactively, I guess, because they usually like to keep it hush hush on who has those stock options. And what they are is they're a retention tool that those stocks don't mature until you stay with the company 3 years, 4 years. So usually the employer, if they have that approved, are doing that as a retention strategy for their staff. But yes, you can ask for higher duties allowance, bonuses. You can ask for them to pay for work at home equipment, broadband subscription, mobile phone. Some people get the car allowance, the salary sacrifice for your vehicle if you do a lot of driving for work. So there's definitely a lot of other perks that you can ask for. And by the way, there's two things that I want to mention. There's just been legislation in Australia that's been introduced, and I think it's approved, that people have the right to clock off after hours from work. And so for those that have a boss that's demanding and requesting things at all hours, I believe it starts July 1st. So it doesn't matter if you're hired now before the law's taken effect. July 1st is when employees have the right to refuse, unless it's an emergency, to respond to emails or requests. And the other change that's coming is right now our superannuation contribution is 11%. It will go up to 11.5% in July this year, and it will go up to 12% next year as our superannuation retirement fund contributions.
Right. Where was I? Here. I was on a 2 years fixed term contract and it's ending first week of May. During these 2 years, there's a 4% salary increase beginning this year that came after more than a year working. There is talk of offering a permanent contract after fixed contract ends. Is the inflation rate a good reason for salary adjustment?
Yes, you can include that in the discussion. I wouldn't go into detail about, your rent has increased this much or your mortgage or whatever, but unless you have a great rapport with your boss and you can be more open with them. But yes, I would say, that the inflation rate is playing a part, and you've been with the company or you've made, some really good contributions, and that is why you are having that discussion. It is a fair, and that was one of the facts that I put in that first slide that said employers think it is reasonable for people to be asking for pay rises right now.
Right. Okay. Is it appropriate to mention that the second headcount has not been filled for the past 24 months and that you have been performing the work of 2 people during this time without receiving a raise?
100%. Absolutely. And I would be making a list of, and to differentiate it for your boss, because remember, you have to prepare that your boss might take your business case to their boss and their boss's boss or HR or whoever the audience is to approve. And I would differentiate in that business case. Here's all your duties. And then here's all the things I've been doing to cover for the second role. So make it separate and clear that it's a lot of work and you've still been able to get the results or keep the customers happy or meet your KPIs or meet the obligations of the contract, whatever those things are. Yes, absolutely, it's relevant to include in that discussion.
Great. Great. Okay, well, one more, just a comment. Actually, if the employee is happy or values our work, they would give us a better salary. So why do we need to keep reminding them, or asking for salary increases?
Okay, so this is part of a cultural and society issue because, as we know, businesses are all about their bottom line and they want to get the best outcome and productivity and pay the lowest wages. For the employers that get it, people are happier, they're more productive, the customers are happier. There's all kinds of studies that show that correlation, but for all of those employers and part of it's generational, but also it's just they haven't been at a company or an industry that really values people and has that philosophy. So because our society as a whole still thinks, oh, I should pay the man more because he's got to pay the household bills and there's so many stay-at-home moms or part-time working moms, there's still a discrimination that is very real that people psychologically, and this happens with women leaders as well, that they will offer lower pay to the woman if they're, the supplemental income for the household. So it is very important to ask for what you think is fair and what you deserve because no one else is going to do that for you if you don't advocate for yourself. It's important to learn that skill right out the gate once you get into the workplace, the work world, because yeah, for the whole career, you're not going to have someone advocating for your pay that whole time. It's just not realistic in today's society.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great one to end on. Um, Great. Okay, so we're gonna send a follow-up email, with the slides, any links that we've shared, obviously Robin's contact details, so please get in touch with her. And then link to our Facebook group where you're also welcome to ask more questions if we didn't get to your questions. And obviously a link to Work 180 as well, so you can explore jobs that showcase their salary, which is great. Okay, any other comments, Robin, before we jump off?
I would just encourage all of you to send me a LinkedIn request or
Yeah.
follow me on LinkedIn because I'm always sharing advice and tips for job seekers. And also subscribe on my website so that you get information on maybe success stories, good news stories, or other tips on blogs that I write. I did write a blog article several months ago about how to negotiate your salary, but also how to do a career change or how to write a great resume. So I have lots of free advice on my website, so I'd encourage you to subscribe and check out that free resources page. And thank you all
Amazing.
for attending today.
Yeah,
We love
thank
to
you.
hear
So
good news stories too.
yeah, yeah, we want to hear how everything's going. But I just sent Robin's LinkedIn profile in the chat, so make sure that you connect. But we will, send a proper follow-up email with all the information. And yeah, thank you everyone for spending lunchtime with us. And yeah, you will hear from us soon. Okay, I'm
Have
gonna
a
end
great
it
day.
now.
Thanks, Jenna. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.